Good afternoon. This is Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email Marketing. Hey, my guest today, Solomon Thimothy, man with a very long resume, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Forbes Council, best-selling author, and CEO of ClickX, right?
That is correct.
And you're wearing the t-shirt and everything.
I like to be a startup founder as much as possible. It's like either it's day one or one day, and I choose to make it day one.
Day one. Yeah, yeah. You, me, and Jeff. Tell us a bit about ClickX, please.
Yeah, absolutely great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me. So we are basically an agency for agencies. We have a platform that we built to help agencies start and scale, grow their customer acquisition, lead generation efforts.
Uh-huh.
The way I got into it is that I've been the agency shoes for so many years prior to this with my first company, and I realized that it's really hard to scale an agency. And
Right.
so yeah, you kind of learn, and then you use that, right? So all the things that we had to build for
Yeah.
ourselves, the tech, the process, the system, the cheat sheet, we
Yeah.
just started offering to other agency partners. So they came asking for it. So
Yeah.
then we turn it into a business, if that makes sense.
Son of a gun. That's cool. So you've got it's the plumber's wife syndrome, right? I'm a marketer. My marketing is kind of lagging, right? I do this for
Yeah.
my clients. It's hard to do it for myself, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I realize that every time I talk to a partner, it's like, man, I remember when I was like $10,000 into the business. You know what I mean? The struggle to get to 20K.
Hmm.
Or when you're at 100K, that's a whole nother level of struggle. So I get to have that empathy, give them strategies. I mean, it's been amazing, and our team is growing by day. It's just like, all right, let's go.
Wow. Now, how much of what you learned and are now applying for other agencies, how much of that is process, how much of that is software and automation, how much of that is, coaching and advice giving?
I appreciate that's a great question. Actually, I would think that the biggest gap from where they are to where they're trying to go is what I call the knowledge gap. So within ClickX, we built an academy. It's really for agency. There's a lot of resources. The partners find us at a different stage in their life.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're like me. When I started, it was the day after I graduated, college. Sometimes they're leaving their corporate job and starting an agency. Sometimes it's a side hustle. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So they may not come from a marketing background. So our job has been educating a ton. Then comes the tools so that they can go execute. That was a great question.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. 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 Give a man who doesn't know how to use a power saw, and he's likely to cut something off. So you give him
it,
the
it, it
knowledge
has been
first.
so instrumental. I just talked to one of our partners. We're working on getting appointment setters for our agencies, then educating them on how to find them. How do you know it's a good one? How do you know
Hmm.
when to hire a second one? You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
like constantly building up the curriculum so that they can go execute. We also support them in that, but
Yeah.
first starts with the knowledge, right? If you
Yeah.
know what to do, then it's just a matter of executing. Do you agree?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure I always know what I'm doing, but I absolutely agree.
Good. And we want to make sure that we give them the blueprint
Yeah.
and then the actionable step
Yeah.
and the mentoring. So like if they screw up, they have a question. We just got done with a 5-day challenge. Believe it or not, I don't know if you ever seen anybody in the challenge. It was basically called 0 to 10K scale challenge. In 5 days, we give them
Wow.
the blueprint on the day one is picking a niche. Day two is building an offer. Day three is lead generation. Day four is how do you take that sales call? And
Hmm.
day five is repeatability and scalability.
Repeatability, scalability. Wow. Wow. That's a lot to pack into 5 days.
Yeah, it's why you got to do it in 5 days. And then you let them off, and then they go execute. And sometimes they want to work with us and take it to the next level. But the fact of the matter is, we're investing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Into giving value.
Yeah.
And then of course, if they find us valuable and they want to work with us, that's up to them.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm gonna guess your batting average of continued work is quite high. Well, that's a fascinating niche. And it's probably got some really distinct challenges because you've got someone who thinks they're knowledgeable, but you really got to help them escalate that, you know, to the next level, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, some folks that come from the marketing, it's easier. I'm sure. You know what I'm saying? That it's like you could you can scale way faster based on your knowledge, where your foundation is at. So I think it's a little bit difficult if you didn't come in, but it doesn't mean that you can't build a business that's in marketing. You don't have to be a marketer. A lot of people do real estate. They don't really know, where
Right.
they just know that I have money and I'm going to buy this and we're going to flip it. I
Yeah.
don't really know much. So I think there's folks that I'm working with that are just treating this as a pure business play.
Yeah.
And there's other folks like me that are practitioners that love what we do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
We're so into it, we're like geeked out about it. So it just depends who you're talking to.
I do love genuine marketers because they get lit up like you are. You get lit
Crazy, of
up. Yeah, right. You
course.
get lit up about it. Like, why? What makes it so fun and fascinating?
Yeah, I think the fact that it's always changing. It is insane how fast this stuff is changing. I mean, we have a platform, so we get emails about the APIs, the this, the Facebook, the Google, constantly. It's like urgent. You know what I mean? You're using the outdated version. You need to
Yep.
change it,
Yep.
and just keeping up with the change is like, if this is what I tell my folks are in our Facebook group, and so it's like, if you want to scale anything, go figure out how to start an agency, scale it. You be on top of marketing. You can start a car wash tomorrow. You could scale a car wash, you can catering company, whatever you ever do, you will know how to grow it because you know how to do marketing.
Right.
If you
Right.
can't figure that out, it's going to be a tough ride. It doesn't matter what you're starting, right? You watch any Shark Tank episodes. The biggest struggle is we don't know how to market. We don't know how to get the word out.
That's it. That's it. The real commodity is attention, not dollars.
That's right. So yeah. So I think just having that inside of you, how do you not get excited every day? I mean, I could, the before my first job was like helping an actual company grow their business.
Yeah.
That's how you learn, right?
Yeah.
How do I get a B2B company webinar registrations? And back in the day when we were at trade show, how do we get so many people to show up? How about lunch and learn? We need to get that. And it was always trying to run a campaign, get people interested, the hook, the story, and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you figure it out. Once you know that, it's just rinse and repeat. Another
What
playbook. That's all it is.
what's not in the playbook now that was in the playbook a couple of years ago? Like what comes to your mind as something that doesn't work as well as it used to?
Since we pivot so much, we're always trying to make it, better than what we have it.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably say, things that we've stopped doing or recommending are anything traditional. Unfortunately, I'm sure this stuff works. Is that we're so in Facebook world. You know what I mean? We're so inside Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Messenger ads, YouTube ads, that we literally don't have any other playbook outside of that, if that makes sense. Facebook
Wow.
group, but anything that is working. I mean, cold email is still alive and working well,
Yep.
but we're not talking about, you know what I mean, postcards, if I may, right, or something like that. There's elements where we're using physical things with virtual, but I
Yeah.
would say anything else that isn't trackable, measurable, it's
Yes.
probably not going to be in a digital marketer's playbook.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And the trackability, measurability is certainly one of the really pivotal differences about the digital space. Marketing 30 years ago, God, it must have been a frustrating exercise. Like, throw it out there and see what happens.
I still, it's so amazing though, with all the trackability. I think we get really hung up on having to track everything,
Yeah,
that we almost forget what marketing is. You know what I'm saying? And I mean,
I
I'm
agree.
between. Like,
I agree.
I want to get the word out. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I know from a playbook perspective, we're not dropping 10,000 postcards to find out what's going to happen. But
Right.
I'm still the guy that will tell you the biggest thing that you need is brand awareness. The lead gen will come once they know you exist, that
Yes.
they could trust you, like you. They're going to fill out your form.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
don't do ads just for form submission, because
Yeah.
you're not building a brand.
Yeah.
But how do you build a brand? I could still do that digitally. I don't have to do postcards. That's what
Yeah. Yeah.
I.
No, I got you. I got you. And in the particular domain of email, which you mentioned when you mentioned cold email, I find myself frustrated because it seems like it seems like the actual content ends up being the caboose, not the engine. in email marketing. Like I look at the stuff in my inbox and go, really? You sent me that? Like you
Yeah.
couldn't bother to be more interesting, more compelling, not so ugly. Like
I
what?
I completely agree. And I think um, at the end of the day, the value has to be there. You know, in our YouTube campaign,
Yeah, yeah,
in our Facebook ad campaign, the moment that you stop doing that,
yeah.
it starts to not work.
Starts to not work. Yeah, yeah, and you're slowly getting unsubscribes, whether you realize it or not, or you're slowly losing your brand and reputation. Your name,
Absolutely.
your like, and your trust are being degraded. Yeah, yeah. This is a complete lateral, but I'm just curious about your reaction to it. I've been intrigued watching the sort of re-rise of the email newsletter,
Sure.
and I look at the ones that I like. I've got a couple I actually pay for. And
Wow.
yeah, and I'm happy to prefer like and hop on it every morning and read it because the guy has insightful, smart stuff to say. And I'm thinking, wow, he's married his content and his marketing. They are literally one and the same.
Agreed. And I don't think it's going to die. Just again, it's based on the person that likes it. I still like emails from Starbucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah, they do
want
a
to
good
know
job.
that. I want to know the flavor of the month, man.
Yeah,
I can't. You know, I love the Apple emails. Like, oh, there's a new version of this. So if you love the brand and they don't take it, you know what I mean? They're not just pushing things on you. I
right,
look forward to those emails, right?
right.
The brands that you're, and that's because now they've really trained me. I like the brand. They've delivered every single time,
Yes,
and they don't abuse their, you know, my inbox. Because think
yeah,
about it, Apple's gonna hide the email in every form submission. At this moment, this is
yeah,
terrible news for a marketer. We don't even know the email address or who we're emailing, right?
right,
So we don't own that anymore.
right.
You know, that's not good. That's not a good feeling because our list was the value. It was the biggest thing we had was our list. Now we don't.
Yeah.
We have a list with a bunch of Apple email address.
If you're listening and you don't swim in this pool as much as Solomon and I do, Apple in iOS 15 added two email privacy related things. One is the ability to generate a random address that goes to you, and Solomon's point is that we're losing that connection. I don't have Solomon at ClickX.com in my database. I've got, theoretically at least, some random looking Apple junk. Do you think people are gonna? I found myself thinking I might not use that because I wouldn't remember the cotton picking address if I used it for a sign in later. For marketing emails, yeah. For signing up for something, no, because I'm going to have to commit it to memory and I don't want to.
Right. I think the way that Apple's thinking about it is it's going to make your life easier because we're
Yeah,
going to filter out the bad emails. It's going to go into your iCloud or we're going
yeah,
to store all your passwords for you. You
yeah.
don't have to. I really believe that at some point, like you just can't get out of the platform because how, you know, intertwined it is with our lives. It
Yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, I also think Apple is making a brilliant play as the privacy brand.
100%.
Like if
It's a
if
marketing.
yeah, it is. If a year from now Apple's basic proposition was sort of trust your digital life to us,
Right.
they're a lot closer to me saying yes than any other company could be
Mhm.
because they've been consistent about that. Tim Cook in particular has been vocal but consistent about that stance. FBI says unlock the phone, he says nope,
Nope.
right?
It's not.
Nope.
It's not.
Like
I agree.
wow, good for you, man. But
Yeah.
it does pose challenges, as you pointed out,
Marketers,
to
we're
marketers.
screwed.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
screwed. I think our tracking became a nightmare since the changes that Apple's making, and
You're
just
talking about Apple MPP, real
exactly
privacy
with
protection.
Facebook ads and the ability to know what happened. It's
Oh
going to
yeah,
affect Google ads. We have no idea.
yeah, yeah,
We're not getting any data back, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
we're advertising to people that aren't really a fit anymore. So now we need other third-party tracking tools to track and measure and get better attribution. And now we need more information, putting into the Facebook platform, like your customer list, and rather than trusting the data that's already there.
yeah.
However, like you said, it's a privacy play, and it's not going anywhere. I think it's only going to get worse.
I agree.
So at the end of the day, we as marketers got to figure out how are you going to attract the people to your funnel? what can you do? You know what I'm saying? Now you don't even have email addresses.
Yeah, you don't have email addresses. Well, I think you already gave the most critical answer, which is, quality of content and quality of consistent behavior of your brand will keep people in the list even if you don't know their name.
Yep.
But with the oncoming demise of the third party cookie, are we really headed to a new stage in the digital space where you won't find a replacement measure to to supplement what we used to have with pixels and cookies and tracking and email addresses?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like our jobs are only getting harder.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line. Because again, Chrome is going to decide to, like you said, there's no cookie, you can't track anything. Now what are we
yeah,
going to
yeah,
do?
yeah, yeah.
You're going to have to do something inside your website, right, to say log in, so you actually know who it is.
Yep.
Do things so, like you said, get a text notification, so we now actually can give them value.
Yeah.
It's all going to come down to us having an app so that have loyalty. They're going to log in or register or use or consume or watch or whatever. But we just simply can't, like you, back in my day, like trying to get 500 people to show up to a webinar was easy, right? Email, do
Yeah.
this, do
Yeah.
that, push.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
push marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, there's a book by David Schenk from about, God, 2003 or maybe earlier, called Data Smog. And I
Mhm.
remember then, this is 20 years ago, he measured, it was like, it's 3,000 or 3,500 commercial messages a day hitting each of us. That was
Wow,
20 years ago. I would love to see the measure now. Like, how
20,000.
many attempts to get my attention hit my screen in the course of the day? It's got to be a crazy number.
Insane distraction too. It's the entrepreneur. We're trying to go do something, and immediately we're like, "Stop! Watch this!" Ad for
Yeah.
6 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, on the one hand, that's the economy of online. Like it's most fundamentally, it's ad and monetization supported. Like most of the services I use, I don't necessarily pay for monetarily. I pay for them with that attention, but it's going to be a little tougher decision for the business if they have no way of closing the loop and knowing what works. Like
I, I
we'll be back to 30 years ago of was it Sam Wanamaker? I know half my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which
John
half.
Wanamaker, the most famous quote ever. Wow, you
Yeah.
can pull that one out. That's a good one.
So, there's a astonishing amount of wisdom from the Mad Men era, and I suspect we'll be going back to that well as digital becomes less a wild west and track people anywhere, and more of a you got to earn it, you've got to be clever, you've got to be on message, you've got to be valuable to keep
100%.
people engaged.
I 100% believe that, and I don't think that just spamming your entire list or push. You know what I mean? Send email a day.
Yeah.
No one's gonna put up with that at the end of the day because we don't have time. I mean,
We don't have
I
time.
unsubscribe more than I subscribe. How's that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're also perpetual distracted. What's the phrase? Constant partial constant partial attention. I think Linda Stone
I
continuous partial attention. I think Linda Stone coined that about 20 years ago. It's like we're it's hard to focus on one task.
yeah.
We're sort of splitting inefficiently between about 100 of them at a time.
It's the world that we live in. And in the beginning of my webinars, I'm like, hey, first thing I have to tell them is to actually pay attention. Like, put it on airplane mode.
Yeah,
Close all the tabs. Like, I feel bad saying this to a person, but I know they can't even get 10 minutes
yeah, yeah,
of something valuable that I'm going to teach them
yeah,
about how and grow and scale. They're already being bombarded by the news feed and what I mean? The
yeah,
Instagram reels are going off. I'm
yeah.
like, listen, put the phone on airplane mode. Because for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you what you need to do to get to the next level in your business.
I was this is a few decades back, but having been a classroom teacher, I can't imagine how hard it is now. I mean, if I were back in a classroom, I think I'd be that bossy pain in the butt who said, "Okay, we're starting. Turn it off, put it away, or I'll take it for the duration of the class." Why?
I
Because
know.
there's no point in you being here
Right.
nominally to learn something if you're attending to everything else in your in your
Right.
digital world. Like, sorry. Like,
Yeah, that's what I had to say every single day on my 5-day challenge. The first line is like, listen, shut it down. You don't pick up
hang
your
up on.
phone for
Yep.
anybody.
Yes.
Anybody.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we did it to ourselves, but now we're kind of looking at it, going, "Oh, crikey, what did we do?"
I
Right? What have we
completely agree.
done? Yeah.
Completely.
Do you think in in the world of this many demands for attention, do you think email is going to keep a footing of some sort?
It's going to be part of the bigger, right? It's going to be part of your marketing playbook. I can't think of a way that you can just throw it out, but I do believe that we still have to figure out what else can you marry with it, right?
Yep.
So we're doing a big launch for a new feature update, a big shift in our company. We're just having our planning meeting of all the things that we're going to be doing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them is a multi-step blast to let our people know to get ready for the day where we make the launch. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it is part of. And are we doing social posts? Are we doing Facebook ads? Are we doing YouTube ads? All of
Sure.
it is
Sure.
combined.
Sure. Sure.
So it's not going to be just. It's not in a
Just one.
silo. It's part of the strategy. I don't see that going away. What I do see is like the email sending services being much more prone to the engagement, and then deciding to deliver or not deliver smart systems that we have these days. If they don't engage with my content in the last 30 days, they don't get any emails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They're
Yeah.
not even bothered delivering.
Right, or you're stuck in promotion tab
That's
oblivion,
true.
and no one's ever going to see what you sent. What do you think about the prospect of text and MMS as a marketing channel?
100%. If you get, I mean, there's some legalities around that, and I'm trying to study that too, just because, it's a new place. I remember you send a fax and you get in trouble. That's where we
Well,
are. I don't know how long that was, but
in theory, phone calls are getting, illegal phone calls, you get in trouble. But boy, I get about a dozen of those a day too.
I agree. But text message, as long as you have it now, the way we use it is we're just texting our prospect who's opted in
Yeah,
to get our content. But it
yeah,
definitely is because it's real time.
yeah.
But at some point, just like voicemails are a thing of the past, text message is going to be a thing of the past because we're going to be all texting. I say Gary Vee says is that marketers ruin everything.
Yeah, I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right.
We're going to be
I
texting. Your
Yeah,
Gap is going to text you. Old Navy's going to text you. Panera Bread's going to text you. At some point, you're like 100 text messages.
yeah. I I made a prediction when Apple launched the stuff we were talking about, the privacy related stuff we were talking about. I committed a prediction to a blog post for an email org. I said, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Apple launched controlled commercial messaging access into the
Yeah.
messaging iMessage platform, and
Premium
I
ads.
specifically controlled, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the commercial tab. If you misbehave, we Apple will boot you off the planet, and
100%.
marketers would be knocking the doors down to get to that because you're going to pay attention when that stupid thing goes off.
That's very true. And I could see that. I mean, everything has become pay to play, hasn't
Hmm.
it? Like everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
if the App Store wasn't pay to play, how many billions of dollars would Apple be out of, right?
yeah, 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 and yeah, App Store. That's a good analogy to bring up. Yeah, um, we we're probably lucky in a funny sense that standardization of messaging platforms never came about. Like, there's not one message platform,
Right.
right? I
There's
just mentioned Apple iMessages. That's one. Google's been pushing RCS unsuccessfully. That's another one. Facebook Messenger, another one. Slack, arguably, messaging for companies. But there's not, unlike email, where there's really there is one email system that we all kind of
correct.
attach to. There's not one texting system.
Nope.
Yeah.
There's Instagram DM, which is independent of
Yeah.
Messenger.
Yeah. 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 It's like
There's just
after
so
one
many.
after another.
I don't
Wow.
know where to look anymore.
Yeah, how many messaging apps must your average teenager have these days? Holy
Yeah, you can
crow.
message inside Snapchat, right? Like that's another messaging thing.
Right,
Just
right, right.
nonstop. I
Is there
agree. I
messaging on
can't keep
Tik
up.
is there messaging on TikTok?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I try. That's a distraction. That's a big distraction, my
Big
friend.
distraction.
I'm like, we're trying to grow something here.
Yes.
I mean, on it, I started it when it started, but I'm like, listen, I got a million things going on.
Yeah, it's a point. I think it's I don't know if it's a sign of maturity or a sign of crankiness. Like I'm really trying to cut down the channels that get access to me.
Yeah,
Like
there's a couple of apps I had to delete on my phone. How's that?
yeah, yeah. And I actually did appreciate the fundamental stance that Apple took when they brought the app privacy thing in there. Because I was as a technologist, I was aware that there was an ungodly amount of data,
It's
right,
true.
streaming off the phone with all those apps. And so when Apple said, "Hang on a second, you should get to say yes or no explicitly," I'm like, "Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. I think that's actually the right approach."
Yeah, I mean, it's we will have to deal with more apps and messaging inside it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. I think
what
so.
everybody's building, so they can keep you inside their little ecosystem, right? How else are you
Or
going to stay loyal?
yeah, or try to. Of all folks, I read a
Discord,
quote.
another messaging app.
Which one? Discord. Yeah, yeah. Discord. Yeah. For more technical folks, Reddit. Right. There's
Yeah,
another one right there.
yeah.
I read a
Twitch.
quote. I think this morning, Reese Witherspoon of all folks, who's a very
What?
savvy business person, said she said, if you're not prepared for there to be a digital you and a real you,
Right.
you're not thinking. And I'm paraphrasing, but I thought she was right on the mark.
I
Like,
agree.
yeah, there's a digital, very convoluted digital me floating around out there. Um, if Google has really got a hold of all the searches I've ever made or all the web pages I've ever visited, they must hate me.
No, and that's a thought, right? Like it's being tracked somewhere. It's just
Yeah,
anonymous.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah,
seeing all of our activity.
yeah,
That's how they
yeah.
create Google Trends.
Right. Well, and the data gathering Facebook's done over the last decade, right? With pixels and app
I agree.
API integration, like, wow.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Huh. So how are we going to help people navigate this? Because businesses still need to find customers, and customers still need to find businesses.
I agree, and I think the big picture of these companies are already trying to do that. It's just that they got to work with the privacy. They got to work with Apple, right?
Yep. Yep.
Can't do it any other way.
Yep.
And also, they also want to make sure that nobody else is going to come into their space. I think Apple's biggest worry is that nobody else is going to build another Apple. Not that they're going to build it; they're going to want to build the biggest moat possible. The bottom line.
They've done that, haven't
And same with Google. Want to make sure that there's not going to be a search engine coming out tomorrow that
they? Yeah.
has anything more than we got.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's a little bit of that greed, and also they're trying to solve for the consumer, because the day we stop searching is the day that Google dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
That's
make
true.
money every time we search, right?
Yeah.
That is how they make money. So
Yeah.
their job is to keep us there. So for them to have me as a customer, a loyal user, they're going to have to deliver on the ads. They have to deliver on the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
They have to make sure this thing is top notch. And so they
Yep.
will forever push the envelope as far as they can to find me what I'm looking for.
I have to say, and it sounds like you might agree that the quid pro quo equation with Google, I have found acceptable for a long time. Like the access to well prioritized, well targeted information and data and knowledge. I'm willing to trade that off for the ad that shows up at the top or on the side. I'm like, okay, I'm seriously, I'm fine with that, right? Like,
Yeah, I'm also fine with paying to Spotify to not have my ads.
right. Yeah, right. No, it's a good distinction, right? Because I used to have a Pandora subscription. I just dated myself. Used to have a Pandora subscription, and they shifted to ad supported, and it like, do not stop the music and play an ad. Like, where do I pay? Why?
$5.
Yeah, five. Like, why? Because that's too much, and it's worth it's worth a relatively modest sum to make that distraction not happen.
I agree.
But yeah, like if Google hypothetically said we've got a subscription version of the search engine, no ads, I don't think I'd bother,
I
because I
know.
don't really tend to see the ads. I see what I'm looking for. At least I think I do, right?
Right. But YouTube, however, you could pay premium and skip the ads, which we all do.
Yeah, you get that damn pop-up, right? Do you want to subscribe? Like, no, I don't. And then you have to put up with the, with the B-roll or the
Skipping.
interstitial roll ad. Yeah, yeah. My wife and I were watching something on Hulu, which was a relatively new experience for us, and the ad popped up in the middle of the show, and she's like, "What?" It was like, "Yep, that's the game with Hulu. It's ad supported. It's like feels like getting in a time machine and going back to the '80s
It
or
is.
'90s to watch those ads pop up."
It's true. All of them have the limited ads or no ads, like
Limited
big
ads or no?
twice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And would we add yet another streaming media subscription to have the Hulu with no ads? Like, oh, we've already got more than one of those. I don't know if we need six.
I agree. It's sadly has becoming where you need Paramount Plus, you need a Discovery Plus, you need Disney Plus.
HBO, Disney, Netflix, Amazon. It's like, and could I possibly
Watch
consume
that
all
much
of their
television.
Never, right? Never. Yeah, it's keeping track of the things you're committed to. Just keeping track of subscriptions has become a job in and of itself, right?
I agree.
Especially like if you run a business like you do, like I do, keeping track of all of the SaaS signups in the business is a booger.
Right. You need profit well.
Yeah, and it'll drown you, right? It'll just kill your profitability.
I agree.
Huh. Wow, I can see why you're so pumped about marketing. It's actually it's a it kind of emanates from you. It's great energy. Where do
It
you
is.
where do you see taking ClickX?
That's something that we're working on launch.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But we see this being the space that we're playing in is scaling the companies from a lead generation and then all the way to fulfillment. We're completely behind
Oh
the
wow.
scenes,
Okay.
white label.
Yeah.
You see me with a T-shirt, but the work that we do is all fully white label.
Yeah.
Again, we're an agency facing company.
Yeah.
But I think the world that we're seeing, especially in digital marketing, is one of gig economy. So we're not seeing this being where agencies are going to be hiring $80,000 and $120,000 account executives and ad managers. It is we're in a world where people want to work where they want to work and when they want to work. They
Hmm.
want a laptop in Mexico for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
make the same kind of money. So that's all I can tell you. That's the future of the
Wow.
agency world. Uh, there's never been a time where you got so much clients asking you, but you can't find people. You know what I mean? Because people don't want to do what they used to do post the pandemic than what was right before. So I'm seeing that shift. So we're taking some huge steps towards making the agencies happy and making the contractors, the freelancers, the future entrepreneurs or digital marketers
Hmm.
finding work. It's got to be there. There's a huge gap.
It's quite a dislocation we're going through, isn't it?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
really it's a little. I mean, those of us old enough to have worked for a while are going, "What the heck is going on?"
I agree. And it's
Yeah.
not going to change. The shift isn't going to change. People are going
Yeah.
to move out of big cities. So if they leave Chicago, your account executive is not going to be there anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If they
Yeah.
leave New York, it doesn't matter how big the agency is. You now need them more than they need you. How's that?
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree. And as someone who left the city, went to a small rural town intentionally 25 years ago,
Sure.
I'm like, great. I love this shift. I've been living this for a while. Well, well, it's not easy, but welcome to it. I think there are a lot of people who will find their way back into offices or live interactions with other humans, whether that's work or not. I don't know. I
Sure.
think the employer that says you have to come into the office is going to have a hell of a time
It
finding
is. It is.
employees.
That's what we're finding now. It's because we have hundreds of agencies that we're talking to, right? Like
Yeah,
we're in the weeds of that space.
yeah,
But agencies aren't going away. There's still going to be an agency in every little town that you can because they're serving their local market, regional. But the
hmm,
way that things are going to be getting done, I think there's just going to be a lot of shift,
yeah,
consolidation, changes, efficiencies have to be driven. There's these agency owners that have never had this kind of issues. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So where do you go for quality talent? How do you scale it? All of that is happening. So we're making some huge investments and working
Nice.
on how do we do this? How do we build that? How do we build a bridge? How do we really see this so that all of the people in it are happy. That's the big part. Employees are happy, or contractors, you want to call them, or the actual entrepreneur who set out to build something is actually able to scale it and not have some sort of a fulfillment, nightmare, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that getting the end result that you're paying for is still an imperative. I'm curious what you think about the potential that remote work opens up for competition for jobs and skills across national and cultural boundaries. The account exec who needs to make salary X to live in place Y in the US, will she or he be competing with someone in Nigeria who says, I can do the same job, I can do it better, I'll even match the work hours, but I'll work for a lower salary? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think that shift has already happened, right? Like, we've already shipped every job we can to India and Philippines. that was so the last decade, I want to say, where every IT person basically got displaced. But I think the new shift isn't necessarily the ones that are going over there or that person wanting to do this. I think that's going to be there. US is the place for them to want to work with, right? Everybody. They would lose sleep all night to have a customer in America because they get paid 10 times more. Right. But I think the shift that I'm talking about is the one where we want employees, but they're not necessarily going to be where we want them to be. It's going to be completely, that person may not even stay in the state they're in for another 6 months. Now they're going to go somewhere else, and then another place,
right,
another place. So as long as we need them, we got to learn to work with the Slack, the Basecamp, right? Asana. And it's no longer going to be punch in, punch out, if that makes sense.
Out. Well, what are the attributes of a U.S. employee that makes them worth hiring at their higher cost?
Like I said, the when you and I call Sprint, I don't have Sprint, but it's a nightmare. But when I talk to my person that works in Texas, they understand me. It's my relationship with them. They get me. They know exactly what I'm talking about. That's
language, culture, shared references,
right? They know Florida is warm. They're not going to know where Florida is at. And so anything that's ever been outsourced before, they never understand, especially in marketing, the little things that drives you nuts when they don't understand context. I think for me, it's about quality. And you want your customer to get good results. So you need to understand the services of your customers, the product. And you try to do that from another world. You know what I mean? They don't understand. They don't understand snow removal. How's that? So I find that to be, people have done that and tried and failed, and you have customer retention issues, right? So that's worse in my world. It's the worst world. That's the worst word for an agency. Can't keep your clients. So we have to figure out, how do we do both, so that you have the customer who's willing to pay a premium to work with somebody in America. If not, they can just go to Upwork and save $3,000, but you're going to get what you're paying for.
Right, you're going to get what you're paying for. Yeah, it's that language culture stuff is
Absolutely
surprisingly pivotal. I mean, my background's more on the tech side, but I got my fingers burned a few times with what we used to call offshore development, and I concluded that it was rarely worth it for the kind of projects that I was involved in, because if you don't, if you don't have a mutual understanding of the widget being built,
right,
it doesn't matter if you're saving money on construction.
Absolutely. or if you have to spoon feed, forget it.
Aggravating.
Your time is worth way more than the saving. So, but again, in the context of the world that I'm in, it's so, like you said, it's very pivotal that my person knows, or the person that you're hiring to run your campaign, know what you're doing. And where you're targeting and where you're not targeting. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and marketing is such a social cultural
Agreed.
Job fundamentally, that not living in the culture makes it very hard to do the marketing.
100%. I don't know everything either, but I kind of know. You know what I mean? So you got to find people that get your prospects or your potential customers and put them in it. So if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Well, man, we could probably do this all day, but it
We
sounds like
should.
you've got some big, sounds like you've got a big jump ahead for ClickX.
There is. It is
Yeah.
nonstop.
Exciting, exciting. Well, shoot, this is. I hope people find this episode and listen to it because you shared a heck of a lot of insight in a fairly short time frame. Wow. Any parting words of wisdom?
Like I said, I think being in marketing is like the most foundational thing that you can do, right? And you're already living in, and you have hundreds of interviews that they can watch and listen to from all walks of life. People from the, you know what I mean, doing marketing all the way to
Yeah.
C-level executives.
Yeah.
I think that teaches you pretty much everything. And I think we talked about Apple a lot, but we have to also remember Apple's an amazing marketing company.
Oh yeah, they're
It is
good.
the greatest thing they've ever figured out is how to make
Good.
things emotionally
Yeah.
attached.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
were this thing,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
That it is not just a watch. I mean, they could have made this 10 years ago, but now it means so much more to us. So I think understanding that, that's literally it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so grateful that I took marketing as my degree
Right.
and not something else, right? So that I can build onto that, consuming every book you can,
Yeah.
Blue Ocean, Red Ocean, anything that you could use to make
Yes.
moves. That's my party.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you I love that book, Blue Ocean Strategy. That's a very smart book.
That's a
Uh,
45-minute conversation right there.
That's a 45-minute conversation right there. All right, quick story about that book. Do you remember the case study about the wine that's
You
the
might have to
opening?
remind me. You may have
Yeah.
to remind me.
It's there's a wine called Yellowtail,
Okay.
and like chapter 1 or chapter 2 in Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's clear that at least one of the authors was involved in the project hands
Mhm.
on. Was a wine that said, "How do we sell wine to non-wine drinkers?" It was
Yeah.
amazing marketing structure, like where they sold it, how they packaged it,
Right.
the label, everything was. This is not targeted at the guy who's going to care about Chateauneuf to fill in the blanks. This is targeted at the much bigger market of
Right.
non-wine, the blue ocean
I
of
agree.
non-wine drinkers. It's like great case study. I hate the wine personally, but it's a great case study.
Yeah,
So
no, I get it. I reference that because most of the people are thinking that what we're doing is Red Ocean. Everybody else is doing it.
yeah,
It doesn't, it doesn't have to be.
blue ocean. Yeah,
You can have
yeah.
a lot more players in it. We just got to figure out our niche.
Figure out our niche. Yeah, yeah. That's how you find the blue ocean. Well, Solomon, thank you so much. You're going to
Thank
send me the
you.
recording when we're done, right?
Absolutely.
Cool, cool. My guest has been Solomon Timothy at ClickX. Thank you.